Hello everyone, Rising here, and Volume 7 of RWBY premiered this week, the episode bringing with it a lot of great moments and setting up the next arc of the show. But how does it stack up with the premiere episodes of Volumes 1 through 6? Yes, this video contains hella spoilers, so leave now if you wish to see Volume 7's premiere without knowing why everyone is so careful to avoid saying anything wrong to the wrong people. But moving forward, if you don't agree with my rankings, let me know down below. At number 7, the worst premiere episode is Volume 4's The Next Step. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great things about this episode. It has a lot of great moments, right? It comes off of a time skip, introduces Salem's Cabal, reveals how Grimm are made, has a fight sequence, some great payoff for what is still probably the silliest humor in the entire show, and even a tease of Oscar's character. But it ends with nothing more than a lead-in to what Weiss is doing, without showing anything of Blake or Yang. And Weiss is just there for 2 shots, right? Like, this show is called RWBY, but the episode was as if the show is called Ranger. The 4 gals are all properly introduced and their arcs are set up, but over the course of 3 episodes and not just this one. So that does kind of, by default, make this the worst premiere. It introduces a lot of new things, but leaves too much remaining to be introduced after it. At number 6 is the only other quote-unquote bottom-tier volume premiere episode, Volume 5's Welcome to Haven. Many of you may wonder why this one is not just at the bottom, but I put it above Volume 4 for one reason. It has all of Team RWBY in it. Team Ranger's arc begins with the meeting with Professor Lionheart and ends with meeting Oscar. Weiss begins her trip to see Winter, Blake's confrontation with Ilya sets up the Menagerie arc, and Yang is on her search for Raven. And even though it is a premiere episode, it has payoff in it, that being that Watts enabled everything Cinder did at Beacon. However, Mistral's world building is normal. And you might not have realized that it is the only premiere episode without a fight sequence. So Volume 5 starts slow and stays that way. Number 5 on this list is a solid entry that expanded the RWBY universe a lot for its time. Volume 2's best day ever. The volume begins by spending time with Emerald and Mercury before ramping up Cinder's plan. And the episode's shining moment, the food fight, set the tone perfectly for the Beacon arc's awkward middle child. Just having the characters take the silliest food fight as over-the-top seriously as possible. Episodes hadn't really gotten too long yet though, so that's all this episode really had time for the time being. And it's partly why it wasn't able to get higher on my list. You might hate me for saying that Volume 3's Round 1 is number 4 on my list, and I'd like you to consider that it's difficult to rank them at this point, with them being really good if not great. But ultimately, is this low because most of what people love and remember about Volume 3 happens later, or is only even introduced as a concept later? This episode's shining moment is the talk with Summer Rose, and the tribute to Monty was the very first episode after his passing. And it has the first Vital Festival tournament fight, and even a new song to go with it, It's My Turn. Meaning that when you saw this episode, you heard that before you heard When It Falls, the intro theme. Round 1 laid a lot of groundwork for the volume, but ultimately those other episodes introduced a lot of the core concepts for the volume, so those other episodes do steal the show. Number 3 is Volume 7's The Greatest Kingdom. But Jason, isn't it a little too early to include this episode in your ranking when you don't know exactly what it's setting up and when? Well, it's not like the opening theme doesn't scream trust issues and the heroes are unsure of if it's worth it to trust Ironwood or Winter. Plus, the Aesops coming out of nowhere serves as a reminder of the other threats Atlas and Mantle have. So, not really. We're good. And Mantle has better world building than Argus did, and that's saying something. Seeing those kids not able to be kids, seeing the bulletin board and miners and graffiti, and is she a lion or a bear? Either way, they made a character model specifically for this moment to flesh out Pietro's role in the city and foreshadow that he made Yang's arm. Plus, Robin Hill is everywhere, and she's definitely going to factor into things. And then when the characters fill in the city's history, it fits seamlessly into the conversation. They're not just spouting a history lesson. For an episode that was originally written as a finale, it just works so much better as a premiere. Also though, because it picks up where Volume 6 left off, Volume 7 has the only premiere episode that doesn't begin with some sort of small time jump. So it does kind of make it feel like Volume 6 Part 2. Yet, not having that soft reset means that the premiere episode does not get to decide its own pacing. But it still works with it very well. And yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, Penny exists again. That too, that happened, yes. Number 2 on this list is Volume 1's Ruby Rose, the episode that sounds like the character that sounds like her team name.
And yes, before you ask, that does cause a lot of confusion.
While it wasn't much to look at physically, looking at anything was a first look at everything. Volume 1, as a whole, sometimes struggled to build the show's core concepts and its lore, like when Professor Port taught Grimm class but didn't teach us anything about the Grimm, just his tall tales. However, Ruby Rose, the episode, as a premiere, managed to set up so much, whether it was anything that Salem said in the opening narration, or a mention of Uncle Crow, or a mention of Silver Eyes. The fact that moments from this episode are still paying off says something. And yes, that leaves Volume 6's Argus Limited as my top RWBY premiere episode. Specifically deciding to open up with the Grimm fight and then jump around in time to get back to the present was a fantastic move, and like Volume 3, this episode has a song in it before you even hear the volume's opening theme. Volume 6 as a whole indirectly answers the question, now that the RWBY girls are back together, is the team dynamic the same as it always was, or is something about it forever changed by the time that they spent apart? And the Argus Limited's contribution to the answer of that question was built into the darn bunk beds. That scene that, yes, we're the same, but we have some things to work out. Adam's scene sets him into his role for the volume, and if Miles and Carrie aren't teasing us for nothing, we still have yet to see what RWBY bought as a gift for Yang. And my last reason for loving this episode is a little obscure. It's that RWBY as a show is more or less a sequence of movies than an episodic series. Like, a volume is a movie, and a lot of its episodes are less holistic, complete segments and more snippets that feel like enough when put together to form one episode. Volume 6, Episode 1, Argus Limited, however, is an episode in its own right. I had a hard time ranking these episodes, so here is a tier list instead that may suit your opinions better. But what would your ranking or your tier list be for the opening episodes over the years? Let me know down below. I'm Rising. Have a good one.